The media has been buzzing about the White House's efforts to exclude Fox News Channel from the coverage of certain federal events, even interviews that the White House itself has set up. Who better to ask about that than the man at the center of the storm, Fox's senior White House correspondent and our good buddy, Major Garrett. Major, a pleasure. Welcome back to Brian and the Judge.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good.
Hey, Major. First off, over the weekend, I saw the White House was talking about the pool feed that everyone seemed to have said Fox should belong in. That was the interview with Feinberg, the pay czar, and what administration doesn't need a pay czar. They said, well, Fox never requested in on that. That's why you weren't on the roster. Is that true?
Well, here's the truth of the matter. The Treasury Department did not receive on that day a specific request from Fox to interview Feinberg. What it had in its possession, as Treasury will acknowledge and the White House will acknowledge, is a standing request from me as the senior White House correspondent for Fox to interview any newsmaker at Treasury at any given time news is being made. And the Treasury Department acknowledges that, the White House acknowledges that. One of the reasons I put that standing request in, guys, is because the Treasury Department made it clear to Fox when this administration came in that our sister network, Fox Business Network, doesn't have the ratings to justify them making regular appearances on that network. The Fox News channel quite clearly does have the ratings and the eyeballs. So I said, look, if there's ever a news-making event, either with Treasury Secretary Guyton or any significant official at Treasury, I'm in. That's a standing request because I also cover the White House, which means Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, the stimulus, health care, immigration, everything else. I can't submit requests every hour of every day on a
Exactly.
story. Secondly, on the day of this Feinberg briefing, there was the Treasury set it up so it would be what we call in the industry pen and pad. Trent reporters, no television cameras. Well, the Fox Business Network, on behalf of it and the Fox News Channel, submitted a formal protest to Treasury, as did every other television network, saying this should be on camera. And if this isn't going to be on camera, we seek some additional video encounter with Ken Feinberg. All right, taken together, in any logical understanding of journalistic curiosity, my standing request and a protest for a briefing that's not on camera and a request that something be done on camera would legitimately, I think, in the eyes of any fair viewer or reader or anyone remotely aware of journalistic practices would say, yes, Fox was curious on that day to talk to Ken Feinberg. So that's the truth.
Now, they tried to exclude Fox. The other networks got together, led by CBS, correct me if I'm wrong, and pretty much said, if Fox is out, we're out. They held the interviews. Major, how much time were you given to interview the pay czar on the day after he announced he was using unprecedented federal authority to cap the salaries of bank executives, and on the day the White House wanted him to talk about this?
It was the day of, contemporaneous. He made the announcement, then he talked to us on camera. I got the same 2 minutes that every other network did.
Is that a ridiculously short amount of time? 2 minutes?
I've never conducted a 2-minute interview in my life, Judge, until that day. Now, the one thing I will say about the five networks, this pool operation is done for the convenience of the networks, and every time a government agency invokes the use of the pool, the understanding is that all pool participants, meaning all five networks, have to be included in. It's a self-executing business contract. I would love to think that this was all about journalistic principle. It very well might have been, but in the main, it's a self-executing business contract. We have to protect the contractual interests we have reached with each other to pool these events. If Treasury had wanted to be more shrewd and more sophisticated and called our four competitors and said, you want individual interviews in individual rooms and we're not having Fox, those networks wouldn't have cared one way or the other about us. You know, if Treasury had wanted to be more diabolical about this, it could have been, and it could have aced this out very easily. They were looking for a convenient means to do this. There was a momentary, I would say an hour-long effort to exclude us. It was resolved, and I do want to say, because it's a fair part of the story, we got the interview, and we got stuck with the same ridiculous 2 minutes that everyone else did.
Everybody got punished. Everybody got whatever a fair amount of time would be reduced down to 2 minutes because the network stuck together.
Well, that is one interpretation. Another fact pattern there is the camera crew, and we're getting so deep in the weeds on this, but the camera crew, which just happened to be by happenstance from NBC that day, could not get cleared through security at Treasury. And anyone who's ever gone to the Treasury building knows it's the toughest building in Washington to get into. Far tougher to get into than the White House, as a matter of fact. And the guys who had the cameras and the lights were delayed for about 40 minutes getting into the building. Well, that pushed Feinberg up against his schedule. Now, the other important thing to remember about this is Ken Feinberg's most pressing engagement that he had to run away from us to attend was a briefing of lawmakers at 4 o'clock on the Capitol. Well, look, he could have been 10 minutes late for that. In their candid moments, everyone at the White House and Treasury admits that. I mean, keeping a couple of lawmakers waiting would not have been the end of Western civilization.
Right.
And we could have gotten our 5 to 6 to 7 minutes. And I would have much preferred, Judge, to have 5 to 7 minutes with Ken Feinberg than the militaristically enforced 2 minutes I was reduced to.
Hey, Major, I'm going to, at the outsider perspective, we just don't understand what happened with this White House, because they took over. They've had a 9 months that some could argue would say is a strong 9 months. And all of a sudden, they are very concerned about people that don't agree with them, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce, whether it's Fox News, whether it's the insurance industry. They seem obsessed with those who have the audacity to go against them. Where's that coming from? What's the problem? Every White House has people that will be critical.
Every White House has political parties, editorialists, commentators that will be critical of it. It is the absolute certainty of life in any White House. And this White House is far less besieged than other White Houses. Anyone from the Clinton years, circa 1994 to 96 or 98 to 2000, will tell you what it's like to be fully besieged. In the darkest days of the Iraq War, the Bush White House and Scooter Libby felt besieged. Every White House, to one degree or another, feels besieged. During the recessionary times after the first Gulf War, the first Bush White House felt besieged. The question is, what do you do with that sense of grievance? What do you turn it into a vendetta, or do you turn it into a larger means of communicating and reconnecting with voters who put you in the White House in the first place? That's the central question the Obama White House has to answer. And let me tell you, if Election Day come November 3rd turns out badly, if they're going to lose in Virginia, the governor's race is going to be lost. The Democrats are going to lose there. If by some reason Chris Christie, a somewhat problematic Republican challenger in a very blue state of New Jersey, either runs very closely to the incumbent Democrat John Corzine or pulls out a narrow victory, that's going to change the dynamic. I mean, some things are going to be sent, some messages are going to be sent back to the White House on November 3rd. Maybe they'll change tactics.
But you can't crack...
Their gut instinct is hardball.
But how can you crack heads for 4 years?
Well, every White House that tries figures out that that's a losing proposition.
Didn't Vice President...
It's a timeline to understand that every White House has to work through.
All right. So eventually this stuff dies down. I mean, didn't Vice President Cheney kick a reporter, I don't know for what publication or network, off the vice president's plane? I mean, presumably while it was on the ground, but you can't get on the plane after this.
New York Times, I believe. Yeah.
All right. So do these things eventually achieve some level of normalcy? Can you grab Bob Gibbs in the hallway? I don't know how it works and where you can physically go and say, hey, Bob, what's the scoop on this? Or will he pretend you're not there because you work for Fox?
No, Robert and I have a very open relationship. Now, look. So this White House gives Fox nothing. We are not part of its media strategy in any way, shape, or form. Nothing is leaked to us. Nothing is given to us. Everything I get, and I get on the air, and my colleagues in the White House unit, we scratch and claw for. There's one thing that's good about that. I never, ever worry, Judge and Brian, if I'm being seduced by this White House. I never have to ask myself, am I being compromised, or am I doing something to soften me up? You know? I have a very linear and absolutely clear relationship with this White House. I get nothing.
You also have a great sense of humor. Yankees or Phillies, Major?
I'm a National League guy. I would like to see the Phillies win, but I believe A-Rod is in his zone, and when A-Rod's in his zone, the Yankees are in his zone. I think the Yankees win in 6.
Hi, Major. Good luck doing your job. You are the eye of the storm. It might be the hardest job in show business.
It's the best one, I'll tell you that.
Thanks for joining us. It's always a pleasure, Major.
All right, guys.
No favorites, no partisan politics.
Don't ever take sides with anyone.
Siding with what's best for us. Kilmeade and Napolitano.